Yes.
Okay, and that just hits it. It hit the first 2 months this year that was much higher than last year. That's why I was asking. Okay. Well, thanks, Jody. That was the only specific question I had. Anyone else have any other questions or comments?
I just have a question about the on the loan portfolio as of February 2021. Because of my short stay so far, can you tell me how far back the Foothills note goes that we're just holding?
1885.
Okay.
It's multiple years.
Yeah.
I don't recall when we booked that loan, but it's been, I think we've had that loan reserved against for at least 5 years.
Okay. And about
more than that, I'm going 10 because it was before my time that was on there.
Well, right, but we've reserved against it for.
Yeah, we did. That's right. When I was there, we did. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So
we didn't release that. I thought we did because they wanted.
No,
we never did that. Huh?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
So it's reserved for 5 years, and Craig, you're saying that the origin of that goes back to at least 10, right?
Oh, easily.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. How about the Oneonta Theater? I mean, that's in the same category. That's 85, 978, 84.
That's very, very similar, Dave.
Okay.
That was actually reserved. All of those that see reserves, we did those virtually simultaneously.
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, you think, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
And we did this intentionally. We did not release our lien positions. We left them on the books with full reserves, or at least mostly reserves, so that we could track them. And in case there was some activity,
right,
we didn't just lose track of it. We would see it, right, and we would know that we had something to deal with there, and perhaps some hope of recovery.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Any other questions or comments with respect to the financials? No? Okay. Megan, do we need any motion on that?
No, but I did forget to put payment of the bills on the agenda, and that's important. So if at some point, if we could hit that.
I thought they magically went away.
Yeah, that'd be great. I sent the bills to you guys, but.
So just as a quick, I don't want to jump meetings, but as a quick update, where we stand with the lease with Burr.
Oh, so they did sign the lease. They have keys. The lease started March 1st. So I met them a few days after March 1st. I gave them keys to the building. They should have. They told me they should have transferred the NYSEG gas and electric over to their name. They also gave me the first month's rent payment that day. So that's under deposits.
Okay,
great, good, thank you.
Jeff, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Dave. No. Go ahead, Dave.
I have a question about did I see that in the revised financials? Change from Hale to Burr. I thought I saw that.
In Jody's budget and revised budget?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's correct. I did see that.
Jody, you're on mute, buddy.
In the revised budget, I still listed as Hale Transportation, but the projections of the $42,950 is the projections for the end of the year.
Yeah, okay, thanks. That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
And just for clarification, in the adopted budget, we had zeroed it out, so we could do an amended budget and add it back in. That's why I'm showing 2001 adopted budget and 2001 projections.
Right.
Great. Any other financial statement or other statement questions? No? Okay, thank you. Other business, I know there's some, there's one item on their CDBG funds.
Yes, in the course of discussion with the Office of Community Renewal, we have signed subrecipient agreements with 3 of our clients, one being Custom Electronics with the town of Oneonta, the other being Cooperstown Distillery with the village of Cooperstown, and the third being the Micro Enterprise with the county. Now that we've actually done all of the drawdowns, and originally the way we structured it was that for Custom Electronics and for Cooperstown Distillery, we had the town and the village actually, we prepared all the paperwork for the drawdowns. They signed them. The checks from the state went to the town and the village and the town sent checks directly to the companies and ultimately some of them to us for administration. What the state is saying is that technically that's not what a subrecipient agreement should do. What they're saying is we're actually acting as a consultant and not a subrecipient agreement. And we should be receiving the monies if we have a subrecipient agreement into our accounts and then distributing the money on behalf of the town and the village. It just seems like extra work, but that's their procedures. Because ultimately when the drawdowns occur, they have to go to the municipality. And then the municipality, in the case of like Custom Electronics, they were supposed to issue all the money to us and then we're supposed to write the checks to Custom Electronics. It just seems like a duplication of effort. With the case of the micro, and those 2 issues are really, we'll receive possibly a concern that we should run them through our books in the future if we go ahead with a subrecipient agreement as opposed to a consultant. With the case of the county's micro enterprise, the county, for whatever reason, issued us checks directly and making them deposited into our account. And then on the first drawdown, we paid those bills because in theory, you have 48 hours to issue checks after you receive federal money under the community development program. So we would have been written up for holding on to those checks and not dispersing them almost immediately. However, since that occurred and since the state wants us to have the monies for subrecipient agreements actually be in our account, there's also a requirement that we have all of the community development monies have to go into a non-interest bearing account. So we've got to create a non-interest bearing account in order to deposit future checks from the county into our bank account. And the theory being that the federal government doesn't want any subrecipient or anybody making money off their money, any interest. So that's why we have it on the agenda to discuss with you, and we've got to create a new bank account, a non-interest bearing account.
Well, if you let me have the money, I'll just keep it for you and not give you any interest, and I'll take care of it and hold it and get something for me in the meantime. So what a bunch of foolishness. My goodness.
It really is. Not to mention the fact that, I don't know about you, but I can't find an interest-bearing account anywhere. So you could open almost anything anywhere.
It's almost no interest now, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Well, Jody, beyond that foolishness about whether you earn money or not, I would think that maybe the separate account is good for the accounting, from the accounting purposes.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's why with the town and the village, the town of Oneonta, they have their own separate non-interest bearing account in the Bank of Cooperstown. So does the village of Cooperstown. That's why originally we just said, you run it through your books because you've already got the account set up.
Jeff, didn't we do this already? I thought we did that. Didn't we do that with KeyBank? Wasn't that the KeyBank one we were going to open up? I remember dealing with this in the past. What's our KeyBank account?
We don't have one.
Yeah, I remember the whole hoopla of going through I thought we did, and we never ended up using it because we weren't doing any sub-recipient stuff. We didn't want to, but I thought there was.
Probably 5 or 6 years ago,
Yep.
the IDA was looking to administer and apply for community development funds. And for whatever reason, they were told that IDAs weren't eligible to receive funds. And that was completely wrong. I don't know where that misnomer came from, but originally they probably were going to set up a non-interest bearing account, possibly with KeyBank. But apparently none of that ever happened because up until when I came here, the agency never received any community development program funds.
That's fine. I just didn't know if there was something you could look back when all the paperwork that we did. If it's not there, that's fine. Just time savings more than anything. Okay.
I actually started
So
the process. Oh, sorry, Jeff.
No, that's fine, Megan. We have to move ahead anyway and set one up. So we should just make it as cost effective for ourselves as possible.
Yeah, I reached out to Community Bank because I know that it does take a while. So I will need all the signers that are on our other account to sign the paperwork for a new one. So if you're in the area, or I can come to you, Tom, Cheryl, Jeff Joyner, Jeff Lord, and Jim Lozano, who was just in our office. So I'll probably have to mail it to him first.
Is this a time issue? Is there a time crunch for this?
Just we need it before the next drawdown, which I have kind of been holding on to just because of this. So I will probably submit that drawdown at least by Monday, and then it'll probably take them 2 to 3 weeks to review, and then they'll send, as Jody mentioned, they'll send those funds directly to the county, and then the county is supposed to flip it over rather quickly to us. So hopefully within the next 3 to 4 weeks. So I'll try to get everyone's signature before then, and hopefully we'll have the account set up.
Okay, well, we should be able to do that, that's for sure. Okay, great. Thank you. There's nothing else on the agenda. Does anybody else have any other business to discuss?
You still have to approve the bills.
Do we have the bills?
I sent them. You should have them. I can share my screen if you'd like.
Yeah, would you do that? That would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you should be able to see them. Most of them are normal operating expenses. The city of Oneonta, they did a water meter testing for the IOXIS building that we're responsible for. Let's see. I think the rest are.
What? Wait a minute, Megan. What is that? They do a water meter test. Is that an annual test?
I guess the city did this. It's not annual. They checked the size of the water meters, and they sent us the bill for it. I don't think that we're the only.
No, what they do is they're making sure that they're charging you to make sure it's accurate for them. It's the biggest joke you've ever. There's not a municipality in the country that does this, but Oneonta seems to be good at it.
And so you're paying this as well on any commercial property you own?
When they choose, it's a choice. When they pick, yeah. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. We need some dough. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. We need some dough. So
okay.
Good in a pandemic. It's great. Anyway.
They sent a letter. I could send it if you'd like.
No, you'll just no.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to see that letter either.
Okay.
$547.50. Am I reading that correctly?
Correct.
That was probably an hour's worth of time driving, looking at the meter, and leaving, right?
They weren't there. The guy wasn't there 8 minutes.
Oh boy.
It's expensive calibration equipment, very expensive. He said sarcastic.
That's kind of like where you hold your thumb up and look at it and go, yep, that's good.
They hooked something up to it. I don't know what they did. It was pretty funny. Took three guys. Three of them.
the rest of those are pretty self-explanatory, as you said. Can I get a motion to pay the bills?
I'll make that motion, Dave Rowley.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll second, Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
I'll show you the deposits quick if you guys want to see them.
Yes. Burn.
So if you saw on the first page, Kurt terminated the pilots for Elizabeth Hotels and Lutz are both completed. So Kurt did the work on those documentations to get them into the county. So Elizabeth Hotels has paid us back. I haven't picked up the papers from Lutz yet. They're also supposed to pay Kurt back. So you saw that those were both reimbursable to Kurt on the first page.
Awesome timing to be getting full bore on the taxes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that, Megan.
You're welcome.
And I think that concludes our meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Cheryl?
All right, so we will roll into the projects meeting. I'm going to skip the chairman's comments and we'll move into the February 2nd project committee meeting, which I actually think we already reviewed and approved at the board, but we'll go ahead and do that here again today. Is there any questions or changes anyone has on those? If not, I would take a motion.
I move for approval.
Thanks, Jeff. A second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Dave. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Move into the project charters. If you'd like to start with the rail yard first, Jody. Any quick updates and then questions?
Yes, really what we've been focusing on is working with Empire State Development. One of their senior vice presidents, Mike Morris, who also works with Corning on a number of other projects. We've been discussing with him about the possibility of using the rail yards as a new campus for them. We sent him a presentation and he was going to talk to Dawn at Corning about it. He thought it was an excellent idea. He said the state would be behind it. I also had a brief discussion with the mayor about that concept because ultimately the financing for the infrastructure improvements that are needed for the extension of water, sewer, natural gas, and roadways, we would be looking for an EDA grant for that as well. Now, because it's in an opportunity zone, they would fund at least 80% of the project, and last year they funded some at 100%. So that's why we discussed it with the mayor, because we would like actually the city to be the applicant for the EDA application as opposed to Otsego now. And he was in support of doing that. So right now we would, if we did receive roughly 80% financing from EDA, we still have another $500,000 that was awarded to us from New York State Empire State Development. And then we could easily get another $750,000 from the Office of Community Renewal. So the combination of all those three would amount to over $4.2 million, which is the estimated cost for all the infrastructure improvements, demolition, clearance of the sites. So right now we're focusing on, a Corning project, but the same package can be used for any other company if they were looking to create 50 to 100 jobs. I also had some discussions with Danielle Adams at Empire State Development in New York City. She is looking at, are we going to be able to spend that $500,000? I explained to her what we were working on, and she said she would check back with us at the end of the summer to see how we're moving on it. So that's where we are right now with the rail yards.
Do we have any fears or concerns that any of that money will be taken back?
I don't believe so at the present time. With the passage of the new stimulus package, the state is going to receive quite a bit of money to put back into their coffers. And the discussions I've had, for example, with Mike Morris indicated that they were looking at doing another consolidated funding round, not this year, but in 2022. So the state is looking ahead at going back to normal to a certain extent.
Okay, great. Anyone have any questions on the rail yards? Okay, move into Richfield.
In Richfield, looks like there's nobody else on our board meeting from the public. So it appears that there's a lot of discussion at the town level between town board members and the town supervisor, whether most of the town board members, I'm told, want to move ahead with the project. The town supervisor doesn't want to spend any money on having his attorney review the draft water and sewer agreements, because he feels that unless there's a commitment from the business, why should they be spending money on this? While some of the other town board members are saying, we want to go ahead with this project even if we don't have that initial business with Andela products. Yesterday, I had a meeting with Cynthia Andela, and one of her colleagues, who's an architect in Richfield Springs, actually used to sit on our board. And they are certainly aware, and she was pushed by her assistant there to get her financials to the bank by next week and get a determination as to how much money the bank would be willing to give her. He estimates, Mr. Jordan, estimates that it's going to cost for a 40,000 square foot building about $8 million. And if the bank is not going to give her $8 million, he says they should let us know ASAP. So that's kind of where that is right now. We've got to make a decision probably by the end of April as to whether we're going ahead with this or not. There was some discussion about having the company put up a quarter of the money, having us put up a quarter of the money, having the town put up a quarter of the money, and actually approaching the county for a quarter of the money. But I don't give that a lot of hope.
Yeah, that I don't see the county going in on a project like that. That would be a precedent that has never been set.
So you're feeling then April now, because originally I think we were targeting March for some decision making, but you feel like we have a little bit more time then, so we can let that flow through, see what she gets back from her bank, and then make a decision from there. So at this point, are we holding on the water sewer? Obviously the town and they've got to sort themselves out, but are we holding our efforts until we understand that?
No, one of the things that I'll be discussing, I plan on having a discussion with our Congressman Delgado, since he actually went out on a press release and took a lot of credit for getting this money for Richfield Springs. The contracts, we have until September or October of 2022 to finish this work. The issue with the Federal Economic Development Administration is they want us to start construction sometime in June. And my argument to them has been, well, we could start in June of 2022 and still be, we're running 2 pipes basically. It's not a lot of construction work. And we have all next year to do the construction. So they're pushing us to start construction because that's what it said in our application, that we would be ready to go. They only have to move the start date back. They don't have to move the end date back. And that's what I was hoping our congressman could assist with. That would buy us a little bit more time.
Jody, let me ask a question. The hesitancy from the town supervisor, I would understand if in particular he has the same frustration that I have, that it doesn't seem that we've made a lot of progress with Andela and Ruby Lake Glass. And quite frankly, you know, I don't know why they really want to go forward. They don't have a major business that's willing to build there. Are you at the point now where, you know, in lieu of Cheryl's question, and in April, we are definitely going to have an answer from her?
I would hope that we'd have an answer from her by the end of March, within the next 2 weeks.
Okay. And remind me of what you said, what's the square footage of the building?
They were originally looking at, I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of an 80,000 square foot building. They've broken that, made it smaller to be about 400,000 square feet. Or I'm sorry, 40,000 square feet.
Okay.
Jody, the extension of the water and sewer, you know, in the town and the village interest, I mean, that overall project, I mean, is the only thing it accomplishes is extending it to our property, or are there other businesses that benefit? I mean, is there a bigger picture outside of just, you know, if Andela, if that doesn't move forward, you know, what are the kind of selling points to at least the extension of the water and sewer? You know, does that even help other, because if you don't have anything in with Andela being there, if that doesn't pan out, then, you know, what's the benefit?
There are other private residences along the route that ultimately would be allowed to tie in. We hadn't included them in the water and sewer district at this time because that just complicates it, having more players involved, but they could be added at a future date. The other benefit of getting it to our property is that it's closer to the lake, and the lake has some serious environmental issues with sewage. And so ultimately it gets a little bit closer to resolving that problem as well.
In addition, in getting ourselves in a position to actually have an industrial park with energy supply available. Currently down in Oneonta, you know, even with Corning needing more quantity of natural gas for a second campus, there's no guarantee they'll be afforded that, and they can pull it out, or they'll create more interruptible customers. Conversation has been that there's an ample supply of natural gas in Richfield Springs, and industrially for the county, it's the one place that we don't have the impediment of that shortage. So to me, whether Ruby Lakes Glass works or not, having a site that could be functional with utilities at the edge of the property at least gets us in a position to market it. You know, otherwise you're marketing to somebody and you're 2 or 3 years away from actually ever being able to start on a building. And I don't know how much expansion we do in Oneonta if they need natural gas. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the Andela piece on part, but the willingness of the town and village is that, I mean, because, you know, I mean, their financial commitment would be, I don't know what you know, to your point about the splitting out the, you know, the investment, but I mean, it really falls on the town and village to take a leadership role. Do you feel like they're definitely motivated and there's clear consensus about moving? Because that's the big benefit piece for us, whether or not what happens Andela, but.
I think the only issue with the village is completely supportive of extending water and sewer down to that site. Their only issue is their water rates. Due to being concerned about environmental conservation, the more water you use, the more expensive it is. So if you have a large water user that wants to move into that site, it's almost cost prohibitive. The cost of water in some cases will be like $300,000–400,000 a year. Now, fortunately for Andela and Ruby Lakes Glass, they're not a large water user, so it doesn't affect them as much. But in theory, that is an impediment. The village mayor indicated that she's willing to have a discussion about lowering those rates, but at the present time, it's not an issue. So, but they are supportive of going ahead with the project. The town, I think, 3 years ago, when they were doing their comprehensive plan, I specifically stayed out of that discussion because there was a lot of infighting at the town level between members of their board of what they wanted to include and what they didn't want to include. And I thought after 3 years, they've had different elections and stuff, that it became more amiable on the board. But apparently there's still some real issues between some of the members.
My question on the water cost because of.
For me, I guess the only question I have. Go ahead, Tom.
I'm curious about you said the cost of prohibitive if you use too much water. I don't understand the connection. We have an abundance of clean, fresh water here. We're not in Southwest Texas. So other than treating that much more water, why is it so much more expensive?
The village wanted to incur conservation. So the more water you use, the more expensive it becomes.
Okay, so if I was in South, I just got back from Colorado. You know, they want to expand some more, but they got to drill down and find some water. We have billions of gallons of water run down mountains every day in the state of New York. So why on earth are we concerned here? Abundance is water here. Not, the sunshine is scarcity. Water is abundance. So why are we conserving water in a place where there's more water than you could consume if you worked at it? It seems, you know, it might sound really good to people in the city don't understand how the world works, but it seems foolish to me.
I don't disagree with that, but
Okay.
The village's
I know it
position.
is what it is. It just doesn't, it's not based on fact. It's our asset, actually. Clean fresh water. If we're going to have an economic resurgence up here, one of the things we do have that the rest of the world doesn't have as much of is clean fresh water. We ought not to be trying to conserve it. We ought to be using it for economic growth. I'll get off my soapbox now. I'll be quiet. I'll hit the mute.
Hey guys, this is Jeff, and I hate to budge in, but if you're not talking, can you put your mics on mute? Because we're getting a lot of feedback. Thank you.
Jody, there's an answer to this question, but I think for this project, the Andela piece is one thing, but for the extension of the water sewer district, for me, if it's dependent on county financials, I mean, you know, that's a tough sell, but that brings it back to, for me, for the village and town, what's their financial commitment? And I'm not saying there's an answer right now, but that would be key. I mean, them being supportive is one thing, actually being, you know, investors in their own in a project that hopefully benefits their town and village, that's the piece that, you know, I just would need to have a better understanding of it at some point.
And again, the town board is kind of split on it. Some of the board members do want to go ahead and discuss issuing a bond to provide the required match. Some of the board members apparently don't want to do that until they know they have a firm commitment from somebody moving in.
Hence why nobody's there.
Yeah.
That's exactly right, Craig. I was just going to say, if you're not willing to commit in your own community, and I mean, who's not willing to say, yeah, I'm in when you got a sure thing? And, you know, if you're not willing to get it ready and get set up so that you can move forward, then, you know, we've been talking about this for how long, Craig? Years, right?
Yep. Same thing. Deja vu all over it. Deja vu.
Well, that's one of the other things I've been trying to impress upon the town, is that this is really the last shot they're going to have to do this, because this project has been going on now for 15 years. And they're never going to get this close to having that much money associated with putting in a water and sewer line.
So it's a real quick question. You have till Thursday to figure it out. Other than that, we move on or pick a date. It just gets old.
Yeah, and I think I could support that, Craig. I think probably let's see what Andela comes back with first, and then that conversation might be a little bit more productive to understand.
I agree with you.
Hey, Jody, has there ever been, and I don't want to prolong this, I think we should move on, but I just, has there ever been an application, a document, a commitment, or anything from Andela that said, we have $1 million to put into this project, here's our cash, or 500,000 or 800,000? Has there ever been anything, evidence that they have any ability to put anything into this project?
Their original application to Empire State Development for their grant of roughly $1 million was they were committing to $4 million to put into this project. They then turned around and came up with a business plan that says they were going to invest $13.7 million in this project. And now I'm just trying to reel them down to get to $8 or $9 million.
I'm talking about cash in their hand that they're putting in equity into the deal.
As opposed to bank financing,
Yeah.
they would probably have to come up with at least 20% of the funding out of their own pocket.
No, I understand that. I'm asking, have they ever evidenced or indicated how much they have and are willing to put in?
No, we've been waiting for their financials for 2 years now.
12.
So on that note, I think, Jody, you're probably sensing from the board, I think it's kind of time to let's get a decision and either decide to move forward or not move forward and understand how this project's going to pan out for this year. So, like I said, we'll give you the couple weeks to understand Andela's bank financing, but I think at that point, if we haven't gotten it by the end of this month, we really need to sit down and talk about what our direction is here.
I agree.
Agreed.
Great. So we'll move into the director's report. I don't know if there's any highlights. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to go through that. Are there any highlights, Jody, you would like to draw out from the director's report specifically?
Cheryl, sorry to.
Yes, go ahead.
Any update on the industrial park? Any calls? Any calls or anything else besides a realtor getting us a tenant out there, a local realtor? Anybody calling on the phone or property or any other businesses? Anything?
Are you talking about the Oneana Park?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Any changes to buildings? Anybody moved? Any buildings sold? Anybody move out? Just in general sense.
No, I have been working with the former IOXIS Systematic Power Systems. Scotty Johnson has asked me if I would talk to his chief of staff, his vice president in the Oneana facility to get updates as to where they are. They did give me their profit and loss statements and balance sheets for 2020.
Wow, that's good. Wow, that's fast.
It doesn't look that good for them. They're hoping to have a turnaround by this summer, but last year they had they did not make any money at the facility. And as far as other interests, as of the last 3 months, no, we've had no outreach or no interest calls from anyone about renting space or purchasing property at the present time.
So Jody, I mean, I think maybe it's just worth just a quick update on, closing out that Corning part one of the project.
Yes, we did get signed documents from Corning. They're agreeing to move ahead with the project. We did sign the temporary sales tax exemption, which gives them a sales tax exemption up to $99,000. But after that expires actually in 2 months. So they have committed to our fees. The estimated cost is now $14.7 million. We plan on holding a public hearing on March 24th. I think it's the day before our board meeting. And that we have run a cost benefit analysis, and it shows that it's a go project from the state's perspective. So that looks like it's going to actually happen within the next couple of months. That we'll have a closing on that and receive our one-time fee, which will go into our general coffers.
Great. And then the only other thing, I just had a question on the marketing study in terms of where we stand with that. I know I sent you guys an email regarding, are we looking to have a facilitated session to understand the changes, or where we stand with that?
We received a new proposal back from Chris, He's putting more emphasis onto business marketing. And it looks like it's a reasonable approach. Megan and I still have to sit down and discuss it with Chris in more detail, but it looks like we'll be continuing with them. The only other issue that they have is they have an additional fee for actually marketing our county to readers in like the New York Times and stuff like that. It's an extra $3,500. The only other big issue that's come
Hold
up.
on a second. Hold on. And so the data, we have no more data? Wasn't that your question, Cheryl?
Yeah, so our last session, it seemed like as we look to transition the marketing campaign and the marketing efforts, there was a lot of different kind of directions and ideas from the board. So are we as a board or as a committee willing to extend the trust to Chris and Paper Kite to make those decisions, or are we looking to steer those decisions or guide those decisions to help Jody with them? I guess that's just, I'm good either way. I just want to be clear because there was a lot of ideas that were being thrown around based on who should we target, how should we go after it, what's the data, what's the success. So just want to make sure if we're all comfortable with them doing and making those decisions, or if that's something we actually want to have some more say in, or a session again to clarify what our thoughts are for them to build that campaign around.
I guess I would feel a little better if they had their ideas and brought a presentation of what they think will work. For no other reason, number one, I've done a lot of marketing in a lot of different ways, number one. Number two, we get an understanding moving forward. If they tried something and it did work, we have some idea, you know, what moves when, what moves what. And just they did something and this happened or didn't happen. I think we could, as board members moving forward, gain a lot of insight, I hope. If something's successful, get some idea. To me, it's an incredible challenge to target that big of a population and try to get a little movement out of it. And I guess I'd like a front row seat in what their thoughts were, so we can see, did the results work the way they anticipated they would? In other words, is there cause and effect here, stimulus response? What can we learn from it? I would rather learn something while we're doing it.
I think that would be informative for us to have, and then have our own thoughts around what those results are that we're learning from, and come back to your point, Cheryl, to a combined recommendation of how we're gonna move forward.
I can send everyone Chris's proposal that he sent to us, and then we can take the discussion from there if you like what he said, or if you think there should be changes to that, and then we can discuss those with Chris, or we can have him come to, I don't know if you want him at the board or if you want him at the next projects meeting in April. And we haven't had
let's go ahead and get that
Paper Kite either, so.
Okay, let's go ahead and get that proposal out to the board, and we can make a decision where it best fits in. For me, again, on Tom's point, I'm really looking for what is our success metrics, so that we can look at that as we're gauging it through the year. And I realize like he got into, actual, click rates, and you have actual closing the deals here, but we need to have some success measurements. Otherwise, we don't know where we're really going.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on to new and unfinished business, the criteria for selling or leasing of property.
So the projects committee asked, in the future going forward, how are we going to evaluate whether we're going to sell or lease property? And what I did was I basically targeted how many jobs are being created, how many jobs are being retained, the amount of the private investment being offered, the amount of income being received by our agency, the type of industry, the average wage of employees, the growth potential, compatibility with adjacent tenants, and is it part of what we considered an industry cluster in our county. Now, with that said, there's been some interest from, I know that one individual has approached one or two of our board members about a possible project they would like to do in the rail yards. In that particular case, they probably would not score that high. There aren't a lot of jobs. When you look at the private investment, it's probably moderate, but the average wages for employees wouldn't be there. So it really becomes a question as to, does this criteria make sense to the board?
And just to frame, last time we really talked about, right, driving is our property revenue drivers, or are they economic development drivers? And I think as a board, what I was taking away is you guys were looking, we are looking for it to be more economic development drivers, which means we may be passing on revenue to stick with that model. And I think that's what Jody's come up with, and understanding, is this criteria seem appropriate, and is that still the direction we want to take?
Yeah, I mean, there is a section in there that says how much money would we receive out of it, but that's only one component out of all the criteria.
You know, I think one of the other issues that you have to look at is that getting a win someplace, meaning if you have someone who's willing to build a facility, and even if it only employs 4 or 5 people, you know, it's property tax plus down the road. Secondly, it might be the beginning of other people being interested if something is started. So, you know, multiple criteria make sense, and I think you can weigh them differently as you look at each project potentially.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to propose is actually we start using this year, assuming we have people that come to our door, and almost prototype it, and let's test it out. So as we have scenarios, let's run it through this scorecard. Let's look at where we're at. Does it make sense? Does it follow, you know, what we would expect? If not, why not? And we can maybe adjust it this year or next year as we hit that. I mean, I think it's a foundation to start, as long as it meets our objectives.
Yeah, what I can do is that the one person who's expressed an interest in possibly putting up a facility there, I can have him actually fill out the form on behalf of his client.
To me, that feels like a good start to test it out.
Just a couple of general comments, not any particular priority. If you look across other IDAs, you know, they typically have a portfolio of real estate that is an income generator. That's what continues to push the entity forward. So you can't, you know, you can't ignore one side or the other. I think you have to be cognizant of both and give yourself enough flexibility to go whatever direction you need to go, because we're small enough with limited demand that, yes, we look at all of these factors, but not one or the other drives us more. Certainly, if something is big and is an economic driver, that's where our attention is going to be. So I think maybe part of this is if you're going to lease it, if you're going to enter into a lease and an opportunity comes up, just make sure you have the ability within your lease structure to do what you need to do if you need to move forward and sell that property or whatever. So those just general comments.
I definitely agree with that, Jeff. All right, so the proposal will just kind of let this play out this year. We'll have potentially an example coming our way to check out and see how that scores.
Okay, really quickly jumping back to the director's report on one other project. We have had several meetings now with Brooks Bottling and their attorneys. They're looking at a 3-year phased approach on this. The first phase is potentially the acquisition of the property, which has to occur by the end of June. So we're trying to structure it. It's somewhat of a complicated procedure because the acquisition and the buildings are going to be done by one type of a holding company, and then the operating company will actually be doing the equipment purchases and outfitting the buildings. So because it involves two different businesses, even though they're separate businesses, they're owned by the same owner. So we can't do a bond issue, for example, because it's so large of a project that our limit is a $10 million bond. But we are looking at doing a mortgage recording tax fee on it, a pilot agreement, and ultimately phase 3, a community development block grant application for probably $750 to $1 million. I've had some discussions about that with the county's IGA committee, and they would be in agreement to have us to be the sponsor for that as we get closer to the actual purchase of the equipment. But we've had 2 meetings, and our attorney talked to their attorney on Monday as well, and he indicated that it looks like it's actually moving forward.
So Jody, if I understood, there's a real estate holding company that's going to acquire the real estate, and then an operating company is going to do the build out and acquire equipment and operate out of the facility. Is that correct?
Not quite. The one holding company that's going to acquire the property is also going to build the buildings, and then the operating company is actually going to outfit the buildings and lease it. They'll buy all the equipment, but they won't actually own the buildings. They'll be under a lease with the other holding company.
With the holding company, okay. And so that I was thinking in terms of, on one hand, the holding company is just a real estate investment arm, and the other hand is you have the operating company, but you're all over those challenges legally, I'm sure.
Yes, it does make it a little bit more complicated, but I'm sure we can make it work out.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Seems pretty common, actually, I would think. So it's not.
Well, it's common in the commercial world, but I just didn't know the challenges with respect to the tax breaks or the grants or any of that stuff with respect to real estate rental.
It appears we may actually have to do 2 pilot agreements, one with the holding company and one with the operating company. That's where the difficulty comes in. It's not going to be just one project. It's actually probably going to be 2.
Makes sense. Yep.
Okay, so I think the last item of business is the 7th round of recovery funds.
I'm actually going to share the screen because I did get 2 new applications yesterday. So you guys can see that. So I was hoping we'd get maybe 2 more or 3 more and just round it out, but I didn't. So you can go through and see those. There are 2 on there that have already received funding from us. And they sent me more documentation for additional funding. And then the rest are all new applicants. If you have any questions, I'd answer them. Otherwise, I do need a motion to approve these so I can send them to the businesses and nonprofits.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. All in favor?
Aye.
I have one quick question, not having to do with voting or anything. Why so many more applicants this time? What did we do differently? Did we market it differently, or did we just so we know in the future what works? Because it seems like we've been getting a couple every time, and it looks like we have a lot this time. I can't remember. What did we do that was different?
In all honesty, I haven't even publicized the $1,000 because I was so busy focusing on the past recipients. And we actually just got a lot of new applications in, and I think that had a lot to do with Harry Levine did some outreach, and I know that the Chamber did some outreach to businesses individually.
The Cooperstown Chamber, just to clarify, did send out some information. I announced it. I brought it up a number of times with the board at our board meeting as well as at our IGA meeting. So I imagine that some of the, I mean, I'm sure we do get some people that watch the board meetings, very small group, but I'm sure all of that can help. So
I think specifically, I would add to that, Josh, that as Megan said, Harry talked to Dan Sullivan, and I think that's why some Richfield Springs businesses show up. I think Ed Frazier probably is responsible for the Unadilla ones, and I think Albert Polinsky was another person Harry talked to.
there's a number of these are Cooperstown Chamber members.
Yeah.
So Cherry Valley Bookstore, the Lake House is a chamber member. I know, I think just repetition. I think people seeing it over and over again, plus $1,000 is, it definitely is a draw compared to 500. So definitely motivates people more.
All right, any other new or unfinished business today?
Gerald, I would be interested in doing a very short executive session based on some conversations I've been involved in that I would like to share.
So your motion for executive session, there's 2 reasons we can go into executive session. I don't recall them. I don't have my folder. Personnel, salary, or sale of real estate, I believe.
There you go.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Personnel or salary discussions, or sale of real estate.
This is a real estate sale potential discussion.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to go into executive session for real estate sale. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. So Megan, are you prepared for that?
I'm doing it right now. So if you guys can give me like 4 minutes to get the link made and to send it out to you guys, I can do that.
I mean, there is nobody on here, so I just wonder, is there an ability to just stop recording?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, let's do that. Good idea, Cheryl.
Recorded. So I would suggest you actually go into an executive session.
Okay, so a new link.
Do you want me to?
Okay.
Yes?
And I'm assuming that there will not be a vote taken after the executive session?
No vote. I will not be proposing a vote.
Okay.
So what are we doing? Are we
I'm trying
leaving
to.
and coming back?
You just got to bear with me, Dave.
So we'll probably adjourn the meeting to go into executive session. And then upon coming out of executive session, there will be no vote. So we don't have to record that.
All right, so I just need a motion to adjourn then.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
All right, thanks, Dave. I don't believe we need a second for that.
I think I have everyone. Okay, I'm sending it now.
All right, we'll see everyone in executive session.
Okay, thank you.